25 teams, 25 reasons, and a ton of questions why I just didn't put Missouri and Tennessee on this list. It's my preseason top 25. Let's break it all down. And welcome on into SEC Unfiltered. It's Cole Thompson here. Like the video, hit the ring notification, and of course, subscribe to the channel because we talk college football every single day. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow us on the socials, link in the description, and check out all of our great work found at secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're proudly brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Go visit FanDuel.com/SECU. Join today and get started with $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. It's safe, secure, the app is easy, and it'll take less than 5 seconds to go ahead and prove me wrong, especially if you are a Mizzou fan or a Tennessee fan. Go place some money down on the Volunteers and Tigers to go on a run to the college football playoff and make me look foolish come December. Go on over to FanDuel.com/SECU. Now, my preseason top 25, I tried to make this as fair as possible, so I'm going to go through the honorable mentions, and I'm going to make this abundantly clear right now. The first two teams that were off the list were SEC teams. The other three, Iowa, USC, Nebraska. Iowa's going to still have a great defense. I think Mark Gronowski is coming on in. He was the Heisman winner at the FCS level. We're going to see change at the quarterback spot. USC, I think the defense is going to be better. I just wonder about the quarterback position with Jada Maeva, but they do have a great wide receiver tandem. And I think you got to throw Nebraska in there. It's year 2 for Dylan Raiola. The offense, I think, is going to be that much more explosive with Dana Holgorsen calling the shots, but I still have my cautiously optimistic views. Now, the two teams I left on off in the SEC, the first two off, Missouri, you have 21 new transfers. You don't have an elite wide receiver that we know coming into the building. Kevin Coleman could be that, but I don't know if he's going to be that. The defense is still going to be good, but it's going to be a top 20 unit like it was last season. Ahmad Hardy comes on in, who is going to be the bell cow back. Is he going to see that same success from ULM down in Como? If all those things happen, then yes, you are a top 25 team. And I will probably move you into the top 25 after week 1, depending on what your performance looks like and if you're able to do exactly the exact same as you did last season. But I still am going to be cautiously optimistic. Now, Tennessee, you were in my top 25 initially. You were. I'll just be completely transparent. But now we're hearing about the wide receiver spot. And the injuries are starting to stockpile on up, and nobody's breaking on out. The quarterback situation scares me. It does. It really does. And that's not to say that I think that you can't get there with Joey Aguilar or George McIntyre or Merklinger. I just think right now I have my question marks. I still think that you're going to be better than Syracuse. I still think that you're winning week 1. And I still think that your defense is fine. But I just got to see it. It's the same way about Auburn. Auburn on paper is probably a top 20 team in college football. But I just got to see it from the new quarterback. And I just got to see it from the head coach. You do that, then guess what? You're on this list after week 1, and we're back to having a kumbaya conversation. All right, now actually on to my top 25. Here's the list. I'm going to go through rapid fire on teams that aren't in the SEC. We'll spend a little bit more time on the teams that are in the conference that we talk about daily on the channel. 25, Utah. This is going to be the year where I think Kyle Whittingham gets it all back together, and he has a shot of going to Arlington. They revamped their entire offense. They brought in Devin Dampier from New Mexico. They brought in Ryan Davis from New Mexico, the offensive coordinator for New Mexico. Wayshawn Parker comes on in from Washington State. They have a great offensive line, and you know a Kyle Whittingham defense is always going to give you its best punch. I really like the direction of where Utah is going into this season. They feel like that this is an all-in year because they kind of realize, hey, we may not have Kyle Whittingham that much longer, so let's go ahead and just bank on what we can believe in being this season. TCU at 24. The most underappreciated quarterback currently in college football is Josh Hoover. And there's a lot of things going on with him, and we're not going to talk about that. But what we are going to talk about is we do not put him in the same prominent light as Sam Levitt, as Avery Johnson, as Sawyer Robertson, as other guys in the Big 12, and we should. He is a very good passer, nearly 4,000 yards last season, total scrimmage. The running back room does scare me a little bit because now you have Trent Battle and Jeremy Payne kind of battling it out. You brought in Kavorian Barnes. But the offensive line has 4 returning starters. So, again, continuity in one of the most important positions. And their defense has 7 returning starters with Andy Avalos calling the shots again. So, they're going to be a thorn in the side for almost every single Big 12 contender. You go into Amon G. Carter Stadium, Fort Worth, Texas. The hot Texas sun is going to beat you some days. And guess what? I think the TCU Horned Frogs are going to be right in that same conversation. Kansas State comes in at 23 for me. Avery Johnson, if you take that next jump forward and you build a rapport in the passing attack, I think this team could easily be in Arlington. They could easily be the representative of the Big 12 in the college football playoff. No doubt about that one. Their defense is going to be top 15 in almost every single metric. I just don't know what I'm getting with the quarterback. It's very similar to Nico Iamaleava, except this guy didn't transfer. He decided to stick around for another year. You kind of built him up to be this pedigree prodigal son that he never was going to be able to accomplish because of what the expectations were. But what I can almost guarantee every single year is that Chris Kleiman is going to lead his Wildcats team to at least an 8-4 record and be competitive going into the month of November. 8-4 probably finds you somewhere in that range of 16 through 25. So that's why they make this list. Indiana at number 22. Kirk Cincinnati wins football games. You may not like him. You may think that he comes off as very pedantic. You may think he comes off as very crude, but he wins football games. And a manageable schedule for the Hoosiers. I think they upgrade at quarterback with the addition of Fernando Mendoza. They have Elijah Surratt. They have a solid defense. They're still going to be in that 9-3, 8-4 range, just not 11-1 and going to the college football playoff. 21 is Michigan. I want to put them higher, but I'm kind of in the same boat when it comes to Tennessee. Although maybe at this point, this is where I probably should have put Tennessee over Michigan. I need to see more from the offense. I don't know what I'm getting in Bryce Underwood. I don't know if we're going to see Justice Haynes be that star running back that he was supposed to be at Alabama. I don't know if we are going to get quality play from the defense after losing major staples like Kenneth Grant and Mason Graham and Will Johnson and a linebacker core. So how do you replace that? And how quickly does it all mesh together? If it does, they probably belong closer to 15 than they do 21. 20 is Baylor. The most underappreciated trio in college football right now is Bryson Washington, Sawyer Robertson, and Josh Cameron. They all can be 1,000-yard playmakers. They can all lead the Big 12 in every single category they represent. Last season, Bryson Washington did lead the Big 12 in rushing yards. Sawyer Robertson was the biggest reason why the Bears ended up not firing Dave Aranda. Jake Spavital is a great offensive mind. I think that you're going to see this offense take flight, especially in week 1 on the Brazos. Friday night, McLean Stadium against Auburn. How this game pans out is going to be major towards the college football playoff selection because, again, if Auburn ends up being really good, but Baylor ends up winning this game, we might get 2 teams in the college football playoff from the Big 12. It's possible. We just watched last season, 2 ACC teams get in. So I'm not ruling this out of the realm of any conversation just yet, but I do think that the defense has got to be a lot better. Dave Aranda's calling the shots in year 2. How much more are we going to see in this change that will make them at least a more, I would say, balanced team going into 2025? Okay, first SEC team, Ole Miss. At some point, you just have to trust the process. And it's a respect factor for Lane Kiffin. That's why they come in at number 19 for me. Because I trust that the transfer portal additions are going to hit. Because they do every single year. It doesn't matter if you go to a Conference USA or a third stringer on an SEC team or a starter in the Big 12. They end up panning out. Like always, this is not like a first-year thing that we're just kind of saying, well, let's see what happens the following season and if you can duplicate. No, he's done it since he got to Oxford. And now we're also seeing him win more battles on the recruiting trail, and he's developing internal talent. Now, I'm not saying that there are some issues that he has to fix and that there are some things that he's got to build upon, but we are seeing the growth and the maturity of how he's able to construct a roster. He's got the quarterback, too. Austin Simmons, I think, is going to be the name that everybody in the SEC talks about by the season's end. He was cool, calm, collected, really well put together in that one drive against Georgia, had an entire offseason to be the guy in Oxford, built a rapport with Caden Lee and Traylon Wade, the West Virginia wide receiver, a guy that you should be studying right now. And they're going to have a healthy rushing attack this year. They brought in the Troy kid. They brought in Logan Diggs last year. He is fully back. We know that because we saw a video that a lot of people decided to comment on social media. Ole Miss, with their schedule, especially early on, if they can just get through the LSU game and get to Georgia unscathed, they have an opportunity to go 9-3. They really do. I do wonder about the defense. I do wonder about what the rest of the roster is going to look like surrounding the quarterback. But when you have a quarterback, you have a shot. And if you're fully convinced, like I am, that 13 is going to be a lucky charm out in Oxford this year, then you're buying a little bit of stock in the Rebels, which is why I can't put them outside the top 25. And it's why I do believe that they belong at least inside the top 20. But there's so many other questions, I can't move them into the top 15. So that's why they come in at number 19. 18, Texas Tech. They spent money like no one's business in the portal this offseason. They upgraded at almost every single spot besides quarterback. They added in dudes from the Big Ten and the SEC and the ACC. I texted a buddy of mine that lives out in Lubbock and works for the team, and he said, this looks like a Frankenstein monster type of roster because of every single part that you can imagine from the world of college football currently is calling AT&T Jones Stadium home. Baron Morton is the key to all of this because the wide receiver core is going to be really good. The running back room, I think, is going to be sufficient. The offensive line was massively upgraded this offseason. The defensive line has dudes from every major conference. If you do not have quality quarterback play, Joey McGuire and the Red Raiders are not going to Arlington. They're not going to the postseason. It's going to look like a failure. And Cody Campbell is going to make sure that somebody's head's rolling. But they do have the talent on paper. On paper, they do feel like one of the top 20 best teams in college football. Texas A&M, their offense is very not one-dimensional. I don't want to use that word because that'd be very disrespectful to the Aggies, and I don't think that's fair. Their offense is very understandable. Now it's going to be hard to beat. That's where I'm at with them. You know what they're going to do. They can run the football. They can run the football like nobody's business. They have a three-headed monster that can win on all three stages. Short, intermediate, long runs, home run speed, out of the backfield as a pass catcher. Layman Moss, fully healthy, is a game changer. This guy was leading the SEC in rushing yards last season before the injury. He is going to be back. He is going to be on a vengeance. There's a reason why I think that Texas A&M fell apart in the second half. It's largely due to his loss and not having a healthy Reuben Owens. Well, he's back as well. Marcel Reed has wide receivers this year that are going to make plays. Mario Craver has been phenomenal throughout all of fall camp. Go look at some of the tape that you're seeing out of College Station. He is winning his one-on-one battles. That speed you can't teach. And guess what? Marcel Reed knows how to throw the deep ball. I've watched it in person multiple times. It's fantastic. But you brought in somebody to help him out with the intermediate part of the field. That's Casey Concepcion from NC State. Been a really good route runner. Made a lot of highlight plays, done a good job of winning his battles, could end up being a top 5 wide receiver in the SEC this year. If Marcel Reed can start hitting singles and doubles and not just going for the home run swing every single time, Texas A&M is going to have a multidimensional offense. Now, defensively, I still have my questions when it comes to the secondary, and I still have my questions when it comes to the pass rush. But they do have the most underappreciated player in the SEC, in my opinion, in Torian York at linebacker. They do have some very good secondary players like Marcus Ratcliffe, Dalton Brooks, who right now he's dealing with some stuff off field internally, Bryce Anderson. I think that the defensive line has some quality names. Albert Regis is in there. They brought in the kid from Purdue this offseason. So Mike Elko year 2 is not going to sit by idly and expect, hey, 8-4 jokes. No, that's not what I signed up for. I could have done this in Duke and gotten a 9-3 every single year and got a statue built out of me at Wallace Wade Stadium. I came down here to get to 10-2. I came down here to flip the script in the narrative. And I do think that Mike Elko is the guy to do so. I really do, A&M fans. I don't know if it's this year, but I do think that he is the guy that you want for the long term. Kind of like I think about number 16, which is Brent Key. Brent Key, offensive line coach, has won me over as the Yellow Jackets go into a pivotal year in the ACC. I am very high on the Yellow Jackets. I want to put them higher. I really did. But I just have so many questions about what are you going to do in the games that aren't the televised must-see matchups. Because you got the Georgia game, you got the Clemson game. Those two matchups alone, I think, are going to draw in massive fan base. And I think you're going to see Georgia Tech play at its best. But what happens when you have to take on Virginia Tech? Or you got to go travel to Durham to take on a Duke or an NC State for that matter. Are you going to play with that same intensity? Are you going to play with that same type of environment gusto, that ferocious fight that is going to prove that you are one of the better teams in the ACC? Because I like their offensive line, 4 returning starters. I like their wide receiver room. They brought in Dane Patterson. They also brought in Eric Rivers. They have Isaiah Cannon back for another year. Malik Rutherford's back for another year. Veteran quarterback, Haynes King. Like, he's getting his MD in college football this year. And defensively, there are some new pieces, but there's a lot of continuity. Blake Gideon's now the coordinator. Tyler Santucci went off to the NFL. Is that going to make a hiccup for a really good balanced unit? Jamal Haynes in the backfield, one of the best running backs in the ACC, one of the best running backs in college football nobody seems to be talking about. I like his identity. I like his approach. I think that this Georgia Tech team, if they can just win one of the two, Clemson or Georgia, we're going to take them seriously. They're going to have a very good job, of a very good chance to run through the rest of the ACC, and they're going to be in a spot to win the ACC this year. I will not be shocked if they're in Charlotte. I will not be shocked if they're in the college football playoff. Now, should you should go on over to FanDuel.com/SECU. Join today. Bet on the Yellow Jackets, the Aggies, the Red Raiders, the Ole Miss Rebels, Baylor, or whoever else by signing on up and getting $250 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Go on over to FanDuel.com/SECU. Join today in the action. FanDuel.com/SECU. Florida at 15. This is where I probably sold a little bit too much stock in the preseason numbers and not the current numbers. The injuries are starting to scare me. Just a little bit. Just a little bit. You're hearing that now we're getting DJ Lagway back at practice. Is he 100%? No, but he's back at practice. So I will take that as a massive win. But what about the wide receiver position? Now you don't have Dallas Wilson. Now you wonder about, are you going to be limited with guys like Trey Wilson and Aiden Mizell and Vernell Brown? But also, on the same token, I look past the quarterback position. Because you kind of have to look past the quarterback if you want to say that you're a top 15 team. Which, again, Florida has not beaten a top 15 team that finished the year top 15 since 2020. So it's been a while since they've gotten to this point. But the rest of the roster, if healthy, feels like a top 15 roster. It does. You have one of the best running backs in the SEC in Jaden Baugh. You have a really revamped and, I think, stable offensive line. You have two dudes on your defensive line in Banks and Sapp that I think are going to be first-round talents by the end of the year. I think a better secondary than people are giving credit for. I think the linebacker core is a little bit more veteran in season, which is a good thing. And even though you do wonder what that wide receiver room is going to be, it's not just Dallas Wilson, who was the freshman phenom. Vernell Brown was higher ranked. Nashawn Montgomery is a really talented player. He could easily come on in and be that speed element in the slot. And you also have Trey Wilson that's fully healthy this year, which is another thing that's going to benefit DJ Lagway. If Lagway is healthy for all 12 games, this team I can buy into being 9-3, maybe even 10-2 college football playoff dark horse. If he's not, and you got rid of Harrison Bailey, Billy Napier, I don't know what to tell you. You probably need to start firing up the resume. That's just my 2 cents. Oklahoma at 14. I'm buying a lot of stock into the Crimson Kool-Aid. I am guzzling that thing down, and largely it's due to who is swirling the drink, and that's Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer. I think it's a perfect tandem. It's a complete and total revamped offense from what you had last season. Seth Luttrell was droll and domain. I don't know how else you want to say it. You have vibrancy when it comes to Ben Arbuckle. You have consistency. You have a jolt that is really necessary, I think, at Oklahoma. And just keep in mind, over the last 10 years of Oklahoma quarterbacks that have been successful, Baker Mayfield, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts, every single one of them had a jolt in a certain brand of offense that was ignited by up-tempo and very much a loose, balanced, kind of floating approach. That's what you need. And you also need that dude who is not afraid to be the most authentic version of himself. That's what you get in John Mateer every single play. Talk to him at SEC Media Days. You could tell that he was in his own element. You talk to his teammates around SEC Media Days. They said that the guy came on in from Washington State and basically demanded excellence. Hadn't been there for 5 minutes, already calling plays, already telling people what to do, and they bought into it. Defensively, you now have Brent Venables calling the shots. He loses his coordinator to West Virginia, so he says, you know what? If I'm going to go down with the ship, I'm going to go down calling my plays. And from a defensive-minded standpoint, just defensive mind alone, you and I both know that this is one of a few names that you would pick as your defense coordinator in the world of college football. I like some of the additions. They also have a veteranship field despite losing guys like Billy Bowman and Danny Stutzman. They have R. Mason Thomas. They have Robert Spears Jennings. They have Peyton Bowen. They have a lot of names that you can buy stock into to have breakout years this year. Schedule is daunting. Week 2 matchup is going to be a fork in the road game, I think, for Oklahoma. They win that game, they're going to be trending towards success going into Dallas for Red River. They lose that game, you're going to be questioning every single week what really is the Sooner roster, and do we have to start firing up the message boards on who is going to be the next head coach. Illinois at 13, they're the most what you see is what you get team for me, and I say that kindly. I'm starting to lose a little bit of stock when it comes to Illinois, but I still want to believe that there is something to buy into. Veteran quarterback and Luke Altmaier, still a solid run game. They brought in Hudson Clement, the wide receiver from West Virginia, to be the new Pat Bryant 2.0. I think it's 10 starters defensively coming back, and Brett Bielema has done a good job of building an actual identity that's sustainable out in Champaign. Now, sustainable could be 8-4, it could be 9-3, and not every single year going 10-3 like he's done 2 out of the last 4 years, but still, this is a team that when you look at on paper, very much I know what I'm getting in them. I'm not really worried about them, but if they're on the schedule, if I don't give an A+ performance, they may come back to bite me in the ass. Miami at number 12. Am I buying a little bit too much stock into Carson Beck? Yes, but I'm going to be completely honest. 12, 11, and 10, you could interchange them however you want, in my opinion, and you're going to be right in some capacity. But for me, you bring in a new defense coordinator with Corey Featherman. Last season, Lance Gidget did not get the job done. This reminded me circa 2023 LSU for 2024 Miami. They just had an offense that had to win you games. And when your defense couldn't stop anything, including a pedestrian offensive personnel in Syracuse at times, you lost and you didn't make the college football playoff and you underwhelmed. You had a Heisman caliber quarterback and an offense that was good enough to win a national title. You had a defense that kept you out of the national title. Revamped the defense, went very big in the portal when it came to several names. They have a veteranship in Ruben Bain. Offensive line is going to be top 3, in my opinion, in all of college football. Rushing attack is going to be a question mark going into this year. And Carson Beck, are you going to be able to build that rapport with that wide receiver room? Now, it's not just a bunch of new names that came on in via the portal. There's a lot of people that you can say, okay, let's see what they provide. I don't know if we're going to be fully convinced that they're ready to go week 1, but they do have some at least names around the program. Guys like Joshua Moore coming on in. Malachi Toney's one that has been brought up. But they also brought in Keelan Marion from BYU, CJ Daniels from Liberty, Tony Johnson. So there's a lot to think of in this offense led by Shannon Dawson. The spread attack, the more vertical approach. Miami has an opportunity to really make noise this year. Kind of like I said when it came to Utah, maybe we were a year ahead on what Miami was supposed to be. This is the year they go on a run to Charlotte. They go on a run to the college football playoff. They end up getting the top 7 seed. South Carolina at 11. I'm buying a lot of stock in Lenore Sellers because there are questions with the Gamecocks. There are. I'm not going to sit here and act like there aren't. But I look at this team and I say to myself, you have the best quarterback potentially in the SEC. You also have weapons that unproven may end up hitting. Like we could be sitting here in week 8 or week 9 and going, hey, Nick Harbor, the Litnikoff Award finalist potential. Mazeo Bennett, one of the best number 2s that you could ask for. Hey, that freshman Malik Clark or Lex Cyrus, dude, he's making noise. Like he's making plays. And so we don't know what we're getting in a personnel that is supposed to be better because if South Carolina didn't really go attack the portal at that spot. But I'm putting a lot of faith down on Lenore Sellers. I'm also putting a lot of faith in this defense, which is scary because if you lost ample players, no more Debo Williams, no more Tonka Hemingway, no more Kyle Kennard, no more Nikki Manwari. But I do like the names that you brought on in. Justin Okoronkwo, I think is going to be a really good linebacker. Gabriel Brownlow-Dindy from Texas A&M, I think is going to be a really good defensive lineman. I think that you have some solid defensive back play with Brandon Cisse coming on in from NC State. You also do still have some veterans from that team, so they understand what the expectation is when you play for Clayton White, which is another thing that I don't think enough people are talking about. You have guys like Nick Barrett back and Brian Thomas Jr. back and Fred Johnson back. So it's not like you're just sitting here and saying, oh, we revamped the entire team and we don't have any players that were part of a unit that last year helped us get to 9-3, secured wins over Texas A&M and Clemson, helped us be able to beat up on opponents that we thought we were better than and kept us in the fight when our offense was stalling. Like you still have that there. And so when I see people say South Carolina too low, honestly, everyone after number 9, you could make a list of teams of where they kind of fit in a pecking order, and that would work. For me personally, if I'm looking at quarterbacks alone, the quarterback that I trust the most out of 11 through 17 is Lenore Sellers. So therefore, he gets the nod over everybody else. Now let's move into the top 10. Arizona State is the second most returning production in college football. Sam Levitt is back. I think Kanye Udo, who comes on in from Army, is going to be a surprisingly talented and decent fit for Cam Skattebo. But yes, we talk about Cam Skattebo being basically Juan Soto in the 2019 World Series, where whenever he was on the field or whenever his team was on television, you had to mention his name. It's like Beetlejuice, Skattebo. For me, what this comes down to is Cam Skattebo, yes, I understand he is gone, but you still have everyone else. this is going to be a better defense this year because there's continuity on that side. So they may end up having the number one defense in the Big 12. Jordan Tyson is back, probably the third best wide receiver in college football behind Ryan Williams and Jeremiah Smith. You also have quality tight end play, quality wide receiver play outside of them, 4 starters on the offensive line. There's reasons to say that, yes, Arizona State, while the Big 12 is a giant cluster mess of who's who in contenders every single year, quarterback play, consistency at wide receiver, no drop-off in the staff. That's the key element for me here. There's no drop-off. Nobody left in the offseason. They all stuck around because they believe in the process of what's going on in Tempe. They should be the favorites in the Big 12. I think they are the favorites in the Big 12. They should have a very good shot of going back to the college football playoff. Number 9, Oregon. This really comes down to who is going to be your number one wide receiver in Dante Moore. Defensively, they're going to be a top 10 unit. They still have superstars at every single level of the field. And they're probably going to be a team that ends up being better than what is number 9. But who is that wide receiver? And I'm not talking about DeCorian Moore, because DeCorian Moore would be the easy answer. Evan Stewart out. This 5-star from Texas comes on in. We can easily trust him to be that dude. I want to know who's going to be that veteran wide receiver. Is it going to be Gray Bryant? Is it going to be Justice Lowe? Is it going to be Jeremiah McClellan? Is it going to be Malik Benson? Is it going to be Kyler Casper? Or are you saying, hey, DeCorian Moore, you got to be the dude from the second that we get to week 1? Because when we have to face off against quality teams like Indiana and Ohio State, and we got to go to the college football playoff, you got to be everything for our offense to hum. I have my doubts, and I'm allowed to have my doubts on that one. Not doubts that they're a top 10 team, just doubts that you can get the job done. Dante Moore, the expectation for the quarterback spot now in Eugene is go to New York City, be a Heisman finalist, compete for a conference championship. Because Bo Nix did it. And then Dylan Gabriel came in last year, and then he did it. And they both did it with the same offensive coordinator in Will Stein. And Stein's going to get a head coaching job at this point by the time next year. So this will be his last project I think he has to work on. I don't know if Moore can be that guy. I don't. I like Sadiq, the tight end. I like their offensive line. They went out and they added in Isaiah World. They brought in Emmanuel Paragon. They brought in Alex Harkey. Like, there are some dudes that are going to be really promising, I think, in this offense. And Mekhi Hughes comes on in from Tulane. Had over 1,300 total yards of scrimmage last year. Like, the dude is going to get work. But it all comes down to quarterback play for me. And if I have my questions with your quarterback going into this year, I have you at the back end of the top 5. But if you want to have them at, say, 6 or 5 or 4 or whatever, I'm not going to really pick an argument with you because you know what? You might end up being right. Oregon is still well built, and they look like a contending team. In fact, Oregon all the way to Penn State at number 1, they're all contending teams in my opinion. Number 8, LSU, Garrett Nussmeier back for year 2. Can we see the same growth that we saw in Jaden Daniels and Joe Burrow? It's the same offensive coordinator. It's the same personnel. It's the same place. Can you grow into that passer? Because we watched what we saw from Joe Burrow. Good first season, elite second season. Jaden Daniels, good first season. Beat Alabama at home. Elite second season. Last season, 4,000 passing yards, whether or not you want to say he had a bad year, is not bad. In fact, it's the most returning passing yards in college football this year. So it was a pretty good season for Garrett Nussmeier. The problem is that he had 15 turnovers. That's an issue. You can't have that this year. And I understand you couldn't run the football. You were 84th in rushing. Your run defense was dreadful. You were 93rd in run defense. You were unable to find any balance on the ground. So you were forced to pass the football. It's not an excuse. That would be passable. It just isn't. You are better than that. We all know that you're better than that. And you have a wide receiver core that is going to help you get to that level. With the additions of Barian Brown and Nick Anderson, I know Aaron Anderson's been dealing with the lower body injury, but when he's healthy, he is a top 10 playmaker in college football, especially in the slot. He can easily go ahead and take over games. Defensively, this unit's going to be completely different, which is a good thing because last season, even though Blake Baker came on in, you still had the stench. You still had the foul waftingness of what was the previous regime underneath Matt House. You did. That's what happens when you get a new person in there. Like, it's going to linger for at least 1 year. It's like when you move into a new house an old house and you're starting to renovate the place and you start noticing things that the old person used to have. Like, for a year, it takes a while for you to get acclimated into your surroundings and you're still remembered of the previous owner. That's the LSU defense last year. There were still remnants of 2023. That will not be the case in 2024. Healthy Whit Weeks, healthy Harold Perkins. On top of that, adding in Jack Pyburn, adding in Patrick Payton, adding in Tamarcus Cooley, AJ Halsey. DJ Pickett is a 6'5" cornerback freshman that looks the part of an all-pro already on Sundays. If he just gets more balance, he is going to be an absolute stud. There's reasons to have your doubts going into week 1. I completely get it. And Brian Kelly has got to get the job done this year. But I'm not doubting LSU. You can, by all means, if you want to. I understand it. But I'm buying stock into what I'm seeing. You run the football efficiently. You stop the run efficiently. You're in a great spot to be able to go ahead and take on over games and make it to Atlanta for a college football playoff appearance and an SEC title. 7 Notre Dame. Mike Denbrock's offense that was very potent with Jaden Daniels, I think is going to have that same spark this year. Like last season, it was cool to see Riley Leonard do what he did on the ground. And I think that he was a very solid player. But I look at right now what we could see in CJ Carr. And just because if he hasn't officially been named the starter, I don't want Notre Dame fans to come after me. Kenny Mincy could also be in the running. I think that you have 2 quarterbacks that better fit what Denbrock wants to do. You also have a great wide receiver room. Like you added in Malachi Fields from Virginia. That was cool. You added in Will Pauling from Wisconsin. That was great. But you still had Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse back. That alone was awesome. Because Greathouse had moments last year where you realized this is my wide receiver 1. Yeah, we got some other dudes that are in the building, but this guy is actually my wide receiver 1. And you now have a quarterback that's going to get on the football. It's a Marcus Freeman defense. They're always going to be competitive. They're always going to have the talent. They're always going to be properly coached, lining up in the right angles, not missing cues or assignments. They're going to be in play every single drive. And then we talk about the run game. Everyone wants to focus in on Jeremiah Love, and that's totally cool. But Jadarian Price is not just this run-of-the-mill secondary running back. This feels very similar to Roschon Johnson, Bijan Robinson, circa 2022. Like, those two both could have started on their own. But instead they said, let's form a duo and mesh stuff up. Like, let's just be that tandem that pisses off everybody en route to go into a Big 12 title game. Let's do that. And they very much were for 2 seasons. That's what Jadarian Price is. So, very balanced team, very good passing attack. I think that we are going to see Denbrock's offense be more complementary and more explosive through the air because of what they have in the weaponry and what they have at quarterback. Ohio State at 6. All right, Ohio State fans. I know that you already don't like me, so I'm not going to sugarcoat it. You're 6 because of what you lost. You have the 2 best players in college football. I'm not going to doubt that. You have Jeremiah Smith, who is number 1, and Caleb Downs, who is number 2. Those 2 alone are worthy of a top 5 spot. But can we have an honest conversation for a second? Even with Carnell Tate coming back as a great wide receiver 2, arguably the best wide receiver 2 in the country, even with still several defensive players like Sonny Styles and Igbenasson coming back, you have a brand new defensive coordinator in Matt Patricia that is a major downgrade from what you had in Jim Knowles. You have a brand new offensive coordinator in Brian Hartline, who again had his opportunity to be the offense coordinator, and they said, nope, we're going to go hire Chip Kelly instead. You have questions when it comes to that running back room. You have 4 new starters on the offensive line. You have a new quarterback that you don't even know which one is going to start. I think that you're a good team. I think that you're going to go to the Big Ten championship. I think that you have a shot of winning the national title once again. And you have a coach that I never lost stock into. But I got to see more than just Jeremiah Smith, Caleb Downs, and Carnell Tate to say that you are a top 5 team going into this year. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. And if you want to come in the comment section and say this guy's an idiot, I'm okay with that. But I'd rather be right going into the season than wrong and overselling Ohio State. And here we're looking at them at some point, sent with 2 losses going into the month of November. 5 is Alabama. For me, Alabama is the most complete team in the SEC in terms of returning production and transfer portal additions. They hit on so many levels. And largely, this reminds me of 2024 Ohio State. So Ohio State, a lot of players supposed to go pro. A lot of players were supposed to be buying into, hey, Sunday game. And they all said, you know what? We're going to come back. Well, that's not what they said. What they said was that here, we're going to pay for you to come back. You're going to be used in our NIL funds, and you're going to be the foundation of our team. And they won a national title. Well, Courtney Morgan did the exact same thing in Tuscaloosa this offseason. Looked at some of the defensive players like Deontay Lawson, looked at Bray Hubbard from going to the transfer portal, Keon Sabb, Deshaun Jones, Sabian Brown, Damani Jackson, Justin Jefferson. They all were like, you know what? Here's some money. Be a part of our future. be the foundation of our team moving forward. And they were. And guess what happened? They are now going to be, in my opinion, one of the most feared teams in the SEC. Offensively, they're going to have one of the best three-headed monsters at wide receiver. Isaiah Horton, I think, is going to be a breakout star. Like the way that we talked about Jameson Williams when he came into the building for that 1 year, I think we are going to see the exact same thing from him coming in from Miami. Like there will be the potential of, hey, Biletnikoff Award, All-American status, first-round top 15 buzz. He can be that guy. I think the offensive line is going to be very stable. The pass rush is going to be very stable. LT Overton, Quay Raysaw. You also bring in Tim Keenan coming back for another year. It all comes down to quarterback play. Ryan Grubb is back in the building. He was there for like literally a month, then went back to Seattle, spent some time in the NFL, realized, let's come home to Kalen DeBoer. If you get quality quarterback play, quality, I'm not saying elite. Like you need elite play from Lenore Sellers, from DJ Lagway, John Mateer, Austin Simmons. You get quality quarterback play from Ty Simpson, you're a playoff team. You get quality quarterback play from Austin Mack, you're a playoff team. You get quality quarterback play from Keelan Russell, you're a playoff team. Which means that if you're not doing your job, the guy sitting in the wings, who's pushing you in practice, who's making life terrible for you because of the rumors and the speculation that are coming out, it ends up showing that you have three guys that you feel confident in to start. And you cannot afford to make that mistake. Alabama, on paper, in my opinion, has everything going its way year two with Kalen DeBoer. You just got to have quality quarterback play. Quality, not elite. A.J. McCarron-esque style quarterback play. Greg McElroy style quarterback play. You have that, you are going 10-2. Bare minimum, 10-2 is in the college football playoff. But I think Alabama's going to do a lot more than that this year. They're going to be an explosive offense. They're going to have an opportunity to win every single game. And they're going to have an opportunity to win a national title with the coach who people seem to forget just 2 years ago down in Houston against Jim Harbaugh was playing for a national title. Like, that's why he is Nick Saban's replacement, because he was already in a national title game before he was in a national title game. Forest Georgia, if you're doubting Georgia, shame on you. Like, that's just you. I'm not going to let people go into the propaganda of we're doubting the Dogs going into this year, because they do have questions. They do. Are they going to be as physical on the offensive line? Are we going to see the pass rush be more complete? What are we going to get from Gunnar Stockton? There are questions with this team for sure, but I have more than just that. When you look at this running back room, do you have two or three guys that you can trust to go ahead and move the sticks consistently? Because the great Georgia teams always had the second guy. That's an area that I think a lot of people were forgetting about last season, is that you always had the second guy, whether it be a Keith Marshall, whether it be a Sony Michel. There was always the number two. Do you have that dude? Is it Josh McCray coming on in from Illinois? Is it Bo Walker, the freshman, to pair alongside with Nate Frazier? Also, people want to go ahead and call out Mike Bobo for the play calling, and I completely understand that he has been pedestrian at best, but also it's not just on him. There's also the execution from the offensive line, but they feel really good about their offensive line because of, guess what? They didn't go out in the portal and add in anybody. So you got to think that Stacey Sherrills and Kirby Smart, who for sure understands what pressure he faces when you don't win the national championship, believes that his team has turned the corner. Defensively, I still think that they're going to be one of the better units in college football. Can they get after the quarterback? A way that we didn't see a season ago. Like, people want to talk about the rushing attack being pedestrian at times. The pass rush was inconsistent throughout the entire year. And did injuries pile on with that? With Jalen Jones, with Michael Williams missing some games, with multiple linebackers missing time? Yeah, it did. But when I look right now, Jalen Walker was who I was thinking of. My apologies. But when I look right now, I still think that there's some talent there. And I definitely think that when you bring in some names like Ella Meduzzi, who for my money is going to be the SEC breakout player of the year, just write that in permanent ink right here. Yeah, the Army kid, he went to Georgia because Georgia wanted him. There were many a team that wanted him and would have wanted him for years before this. He is going to be a dude that we are talking about. The secondary is going to be a lot better. Can KJ Bolden take on that Malachi Stark role, be more complete? That's a question neither here nor there. We'll figure that one out. But I think that you're in a good spot if you're Georgia. I really do. Gunnar Stockton, he's that old blue-collar type mentality quarterback that has worked at Georgia for years. Stetson Bennett felt that way. JT Daniels, in my opinion, felt that way. Jake Fromm felt that way. That's the type of quarterback that you want if you were Kirby Smart. You don't want the flash. I think Carson Beck, who was in his own era, had his own flash. Maybe you got to get back to the overall, let's just play a balanced game. And You can't have wide receivers dropping balls. You can't lead the country in drops and think, hey, we're a team that can win a national title. I don't think that you will. Noah Thomas doesn't drop the ball that often. They have some really good up-and-coming freshmen that they're really high on. Zachariah Branch leaving Los Angeles and coming on down to Athens, GA. I think it's going to do wonders for his career. And can we talk about the tight end room? Like, there really is good talent there. Like, Oscar Delp is back. Lucky Lawson is back. They got a third-string dude who would probably start for, like, every other team in the SEC. So you can't say that there are problems with Georgia because of there aren't. There's just unproven potential with this team. But actually, on paper, this is the best roster that Kirby Smart has ever fielded, according to the blue chip ratio. So don't doubt Georgia now, because if you want to, you're sadly going to be proven wrong. Texas comes in at number 3 for me. We have got to focus outside of the world of Arch Manning. That's all I will say, because there are other issues besides just what Arch is going to do. It's 4 new starting offensive linemen. You don't know who's playing right tackle week 1, because the guy that was supposed to be the starter just tore his ACL. So you have a question mark on that side of the offensive line. Defensively, you lost everyone to the NFL draft last year on the interior, and you didn't have talent to develop waiting in the wings, so you had to go big in the portal. And you bring in Brevard, and you bring in Travis Shaw, and you bring in Hero Canoe, and you bring in Justice Terry, who's a 5-star that's going to have a big role. How are they all going to gel together instantaneously to fit with the pass rush that you currently have? Now, remember, I said this is all about Arch. This is not about Arch, because there are some positives for this team that don't feature Arch Manning. You, for my money, have the best player on the SEC in Anthony Hill at linebacker. That's your Buckus Award winner. I'm just writing it down in permanent marker. I don't think that he misses a beat this year. Top 10 player in college football, far and away. And if your list doesn't feature him, it's automatically insufficient. Like, apparently my list is insufficient for not having Tennessee on here. If you don't have Anthony Hill on your list, I'm sorry. I don't believe that you know the top 10 players in college football, because that's a dude that does everything and is everywhere and is an impact. He is a heat-seeking missile ready to go ahead and shut down all of your bad takes. That's what he is. But you also have Colin Simmons off the edge, Trey Moore off the edge, Mookie Taft is back in the secondary, Jalen Gilbo, I think, is going to have a phenomenal season this upcoming fall, and you also have really quality play from the pass rush in veteranship with guys like Ethan Burke. Wide receiver room, it's unproven, but there is so much potential. DeAndre Moore, we saw at times last year, step on up really big. Ryan Wingo texted a buddy of mine that works at Texas. They think that if he didn't have to split reps with Matthew Golden last year, we would talk about him the way we talk about Ryan Williams. We would talk about him the way that we talk about Jeremiah Smith, Cam Coleman. He would have been that guy. And he already has a relationship with Arch from running with the twos. So there we go. Automatically feel really confident in what he's going to provide. Emmett Mosley comes on in from Stanford. Last season led all ACC freshmen in receptions. Really, really big-time name that you want. Jack Andrews comes on in, the tight end from Cal. Really, really, really good receiving threat. Blocking, big question. Big question. But I like what he is as a receiver, which is going to do wonders in a Steve Sarkisian offense. And you both have running back, and you have 3 running backs back that are fully healthy in camp. You have CJ Baxter back. That's a massive win for your season going into the Ohio State game. You have Trey Wisner. Another massive win going into the Ohio State game. 1,000-yard rusher last season. There's no reason not to believe that the Longhorns are going to fall off a cliff. But we also got to turn to 16, because this is the Arch Manning show. What are you going to do? It's your team now. You no longer have the security blanket that was Quinn Ewers to kind of hide behind. AJ Milwee has taught you everything that you need to know. Steve Sarkisian has put you in a position to be successful. How are you going to handle it? Because if you handle it the way that I think you will, 11-1 feels like the floor. The ceiling is 12-0. Going to the college football playoff should be an expectation, and it should be a standard. Because that's how much talent Texas has. And yes, is that meaning I'm even putting pressure on Arch Manning? Absolutely. But I think he has the chops. I think he has all the tidbits that you want to be a successful quarterback. I just wonder what more we need to see surrounding him that is going to elevate his game. Because if so, there's a lot to like about Arch Manning taking over games and finally being everything that Texas wanted and getting back to that level of, hey, national championship, it's actually a real thing. Last 2, Clemson at number 2. It's the most churning production in college football. I love the hire of Tom Allen as your defense coordinator. I don't think you could have made a better hire this offseason outside of Jim Knowles, and you were never getting Jim Knowles. You have veteran play all across the board. You brought in Will Held over from Purdue. That's going to do wonders for your pass rush. TJ Parker is a top 10 player. I think Peter Woods is a top 10 player. You have great linebacking play with Carter. That's another top 15 player. Avian Terrell in coverage. That's a top 10 cornerback in college football. You're going to be able to shut down teams simply because if you play in the ACC and you have quality play. Offensive line, you have 40 starters. You have a new running back, so we don't know what he's going to provide. But if it's anything consistent on the ground, that makes you a multifaceted offense going into year 3 with Garrett Riley calling the shots. This feels like for the first time in a while, the most complete wide receiver room in Clemson. Since what, 2016, 2017? With Bryant Wesco, Antonio Williams, then you throw in TJ Moore. And every single one of them, you can almost guarantee has a shot at going for 1,000 yards because of who's the quarterback. Like every single one of them has a shot to go for the 1,000 and easily be an all ACC receiver. They're good. They're good all across the board. The LSU game, the Georgia Tech game, South Carolina game. Those are the 3. You don't blow it against any of the other teams on a regular Friday night, like the trap game against Louisville. You have a shot of going undefeated. You definitely have a shot of going 10-2 at worst. That's the floor, in my opinion, for this team. You can do that. You're going to the playoff. You are going to be a top 4 seed. Number 1 is Penn State. I hate to put Penn State at number 1 because I understand I'm putting so much faith in James Franklin. And I hate that because I know the jokes. I do. But it's not James Franklin I'm worried about. I'm looking at the rest of the roster. And that's where my brain has to go if we're going to have this conversation. They have 4 returning offensive linemen from last season's reps. They have a starting center who saw reps last season. They have the 5th guy that has played with the starting unit multiple times. My bad, the right guard, Cooper Cousins. They have 3 new wide receivers, all of which were really good for their former teams. Kyron Hudson was a quality number 3 at USC. Devontae Ross was one of the best wide receivers in the Sun Belt at Troy last season. All ACC, Trevor Pena comes on in. The tight end room, you're saying, well, you no longer have a Tyler Warren. You don't need a Tyler Warren because if Khalid Dinkins or Luke Reynolds is going to be a quality enough player that gives you reps that pairs alongside with one of the best running back rooms I've ever seen, Nick Singleton and Katron Allen. They sign up for another year. Comes down to Drew Allen. Can you be the dude? Can this be the season where you don't mess up? Just have quality play. Because again, your defense got an upgrade, which is funny because usually you don't worry about Penn State's defense needing an upgrade, but they did because if they said, you know what? We don't like that Jim Knowles is playing against us. We're going to pay him to come play with us. So now he's in State College after helping Columbus win a national title, and they want to win a national title. They have quality players on defense. DDS coming off the edge, horrifying. Alonzo Ford coming at the middle, horrifying. Zariah Fisher, horrifying. Amari Campbell coming on in. Could be a really good find in the portal. AJ Harris is your number 1 cornerback. Fantastic player that doesn't get enough love. Elliott Washington II, really good secondary option. Matt King coming on in from Alabama, really good depth piece. You have everything here to go on a run. So it can't just be the James Franklin effect. Because if it is the James Franklin effect, I'm sorry. Then you got to hit reset. And reset means firing the staff. Because on paper, this to me feels like the most complete team in college football. And am I buying a little bit more off than I can chew? Potentially. But I'm willing to die on this take. I think that this is the most complete team in college football. All right. Those are my top 25. We've been over here for 45 minutes. Like, review, hit subscribe. Make sure you're following us on social media at Mr. Cole Thompson. Download the podcast version of the show wherever you get your podcast listening systems. Follow me at Mr. Cole Thompson and comment why you hate this list so much because I know many of you already do. And yes, Missouri and Tennessee fans, I'm sorry. I really think I probably should have put you in here. But you know what? Bygones be bygones. Hopefully you can prove me wrong. Until next time, folks, I am Cole Thompson. College football is right around the corner, which means opinions, they're going to be flying everywhere. And I know that yours for mine, not really well liked in Columbia and Knoxville. Peace.